Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of the New Brussels talk show and podcast, The Middle Ground. My name is Victoria and I'm your today's host. We have a very special guest today on our blue couch. Her name is Kelly Agathos. Kelly Agathos is a Greek-American performer, trainer, improviser. After working around a decade in bureaucratic trenches, she decided it was time for less policy and more punchlines. She co-founded the famous Schuman Show, which is a political satire show which roasts Brussels with love. Kelly, thank you very much for joining the middle ground.
Thank you very much for having me, Victoria.
You have worked for many, many years in the European institutions, and at some point you have decided to set up, change your career, found the improv school and the Schuman Show. What did you have to unlearn from your ImproBubble work lifestyle experience to be able to become the performer that you are now today?
What I mainly had to unlearn was to ask for permission, because suddenly there were no layers of bureaucracy, there were no higher up signups. I was my own boss and I called the shots. So in the beginning, I remember it being kind of weird, but also exciting that I could just decide I want to do this and I could just make it happen. The other thing, though, the more interesting, I think, thing from a psychological perspective is that often a feedback I'd heard in the workplace was that I'm an open book, I have no poker face, people can tell whether I'm happy or sad or mad, and to just make sure I'm aware of my facial expressions. Which of course is very important when you are working in a diplomatic environment. But in order to do something like theater, something where you are communicating so much with your cadence, your tone, your voice, your body, and of course your face, I was able to fully be myself and express myself completely.
So you have kind of changed or tweaked your personality a little bit, your character, to be able to become a performer on stage.
Well, I wouldn't say so much that I tweaked it as much as I allowed myself to be free.
So how did you even have the idea to find the Schuman Show? How did it come to be?
Well, the story of the Schuman Show cannot be separated from when I met Lisa Witteman, who's an investigative journalist here in Brussels. She's the deputy editor-in-chief of Follow the Money, an investigative paper. We met in between the two lockdowns, so in August 2020. And we immediately bonded over the fact that we agreed that in Brussels, there is a difficulty in communicating what Europe does to the outside world. We are very heavy on jargon, we get lost in details, we cannot see the forest for the trees. And so there's a lot of confusion and apathy outside of Brussels and in the member states very often. I don't need to tell you, this is a conversation we have all the time. And we were bemoaning that and thinking how sad it is that this exists. But the spark for the show came when we both admitted and bonded over the fact that our brothers only get their news through The Daily Show, which is a famous US talk show. Me too. And we just made a throwaway comment, like, wouldn't it be great if Europe had something like that? Fast forward a few months, it's lockdown number 2, I'm very bored, and I'm taking an online class on freestyle rapping because I'm an improviser, and whilst we couldn't be in classes, being able to play with language and create rhymes and raps, it felt a little bit like the closest thing I could have to a class experience that I would enjoy. And around the time that I was doing this class, and we had to practice our raps and our rhymes, because Brexit was getting finalized, it was December 2020, January 2021, and because it's something that I was very pissed about in general, having worked in the Brussels bubble, being a huge Europhile, I'm not understanding Brexit. I noticed that my rhymes kept on being about Brexit. So I decided to write a whole rap about Brexit, playing Europe for a disgruntled wife who's ranting to her ex-husband about how he didn't know what he had until he lost it and stuff like that. And we made the video clip, of course, COVID rules and everything, and released it at the end of January 2021. And it got a few thousand views, whatever Brussels viral would be. Got the attention of Politico, who put me on their podcast to talk about whether Brussels is funny, whether the EU is funny, actually. And I had a conversation with Lisa around that time, who reminded me of that conversation we'd had. And she said, you have to make a European daily show. And I said to her, I'm not doing it alone. I'll only do it with you.
I mean, I wouldn't do this alone for sure. I'm definitely doing it because Valeria is with me. So a good team is very important part of any project, I think. But I think a few people know that before founding the Schuman Show, you actually already had another school, improBubble. And you mentioned one time when we were talking that your life was very different before improv and after improv.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Of course, yes. I am I sometimes describe myself as the firstborn daughter of a firstborn daughter of Greek immigrants. So I'm sure I can see already on your face that you understand. Yes. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that I was raised by a very strong woman who, of course, was already a pioneer in her family, as someone who had to be a second mom to her younger siblings. She was the first person in her family to go to university, and she raised us, to be like them with this immigrant mentality that you have to be twice as good as everyone else, and you have to succeed, and hard work means that you'll be successful in life. And so because of that, what looked like achieving love in my family was very closely tied to being a very polite, well-behaved child, please and thank you, and of course being an A-class student, getting the highest grades, so that you can then get the great job and
make your parents proud.
Your parents proud, get a great career, et cetera, et cetera. When you are brought up like that, though, that means that you are always a little worried about saying something wrong, doing something wrong, speaking out of turn, and failure can take up huge dimensions because you're not allowed failure. And yet, making mistakes is how we get experience. Making mistakes is how we live authentically. Making mistakes is how we find out what we truly love. Before improvisational theater, I went down the path that was considered the traditional path you should do. So I studied a subject that would get me into great university. I studied archaeology. I then did a job that was considered very good in the tourism sector in Greece. Eventually, I made it to EU affairs, etc. But inside me, what I had wanted from a very young age was to be an actor. But that was not considered a option.
A solid career.
No, of course
especially
not.
For immigrant family.
You went to you got a great education. We gave you everything we didn't have, and now you want to throw it all away for what? For a pipe dream? And there was a part of me also that thought that, well, if my own family doesn't believe in me, how would anyone else believe in me in such a difficult career? Cut to still doing it as a hobby at university, going to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is the largest theater festival in the world, where I saw improvisational theater, which is unscripted theater, for the first time on stage. And I fell in love immediately because I couldn't believe that the actors were making everything up on the spot. They were quick, they were funny, they were witty, the mistakes were hilarious, and they didn't miss a beat, and they were able to create something beautiful out of the mistakes as well. So I just sat there with my jaw dropping, and for the rest of the festival, I just watched improv shows, improvised film noir, improvised musical, improvised DVD, whatever I could get that was in some way related to improv. When I moved to Brussels to do an internship at the European Commission, as many people do when they move to Brussels, I was feeling a little bit like I settled, like I'm choosing to do the thing that's expected of me rather than the thing I want. And I promised myself that I'm not going to be a boring gray suit. I'm also going to keep up the acting. And luckily for me, there was a improv class happening at the American Theatre Company given by my first improv teacher, now a very dear friend, Ryan Miller. And the rest is history. I loved it. I enjoyed every moment, even though I was terrified. I got up on stage that same evening and performed. I met amazing people, and then throughout my time in Brussels, almost in parallel to my career in EU affairs, I was going to every improv festival I could go to. I was trying to work with all the greats. I was bringing improvisers over to Brussels to give workshops. And eventually I created my own troupe. Eventually I decided that I wanted Brussels to have what I didn't have, which was a school where they could learn improvisation and get that education instead of having to travel all over to work with other teachers.
Over the past few years, since you had the improv school, you probably have seen hundreds of people show up to your classes and your workshops. Have you noticed any patterns in the way people show up, the reason they show up, and just who comes to your classes, what they're looking for consciously or subconsciously?
Yes, what people seem to be looking for when they come to ImproBubble, I would say broadly falls into two categories. There is the category of the people who, like me when I started, want to have an artistic spark alive, want to have a hobby that is meaningful, that is creative, and that gives them a creative outlet. The other category are people who are doing it to get better at their job. Very specifically in communications, they want to be more spontaneous, they want to let go, they are worried about maybe getting questions that they don't know how to answer at their jobs, and so they're looking to do improvisational theater because when you have to make up something out of nothing and when you don't know what's going to come your way, you become very good at relaxing, at not getting stressed by it, and learning how to respond. So those would be, I say, the two broadest categories.
Are there any types of people that you can spot before they even step on stage? Or has someone's life completely changed since they have taken the classes? Do you know any interesting stories?
There's two very specific patterns. There's the overthinkers, the ones who will hear the description of the exercise and then ask me, so you mean we need to do it like this? You mean we need to do that? And they'll ask a bunch of questions and I'll just say, let's just try it. Let's just see what happens.
I think I would be the overthinker.
It's of course. I mean, think about it. We are in a city that is full of very high achievers, the best in their classes, idealistic people who want to make a difference in policy very often, etc. So very academically minded as well. So of course they want all the information. But the thing about improvisational theater is that you have to learn to let go and also jump into the unknown and follow the fear. So the overthinkers are one category. The other category is, I don't know how a polite way to say this would be, the smartasses.
Yeah.
Kind of the ones who think they know a little bit better, the ones who want to show off and be like they're cool. In the end, what that's masking in the end is fear, very humanly as well. It's a defense mechanism, and their way of coping with it is to make a joke about it. And it's very normal when you start improvisational theater to manifest a type of fear and not be completely open. It took me years as well to be able to get completely comfortable, and I'm not always, even now after 15 years, completely comfortable all the time on stage. But when you are able to let go and step into the unknown and just be vulnerable, curious and open, that is when your life changes on and off stage.
You mentioned material. I'm very curious because Brussels is a city of talking points and diplomacy and very strict rules of wording, and you chose a career that is about spontaneity and sarcasm and jokes. Do you feel any responsibility at all working with the political material in a city like Brussels?
I feel a lot of responsibility for working with political material, and our show, the Schuman Show, is mostly scripted. We do have unscripted moments. We have improv in the Schuman Show because, of course, I could not have a show that didn't have some type of improvisation in it. But our sketches are scripted. Most of the monologue is scripted. Most of the interviews are scripted, and we talk a lot amongst ourselves as writers about this responsibility. And I'm sure you feel it as well. We're living in very difficult times right now, and where nuance sometimes is lost, and where debates become very polarized and very black and white, and sometimes it's gray. So we do have a lot of discussions behind the scenes about what we will say, how we will say it. Does the joke land? Does its intention become known? And there are red lines, of course, as well, because there are things that we feel are beyond the capability of joking about.
Kelly, I'm wondering, is there something that you cannot joke about at all in Brussels?
I don't know that you could single out Brussels itself. In fact, I think the Belgians and also the people who live in Brussels, they're very self-deprecating and very good at taking jokes. For example, we have a sketch in the Schuman Show that's one of the highest, most viewed ones on YouTube, called Brussels Anonymous, and it's kind of a take on Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a support group for the people who've lived in Brussels for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And both when we played it in the theater and online, it got a lot of laughs because there are things that are truly that people struggle with. In terms of what you cannot joke in general about, when I went to see Stephen Colbert's show in New York, I went with a colleague from the Schuman Show.
So lucky, my God, I would dream about that. Now it's gone.
Not yet,
A
almost.
few months.
So Danny and I, a brilliant writer on the Schuman Show, we went to New York to go to the late night shows because we get so much of our inspiration from the late night shows. And we wanted to talk with writers. We wanted to see what it looks like, what happens behind the scenes, et cetera, to bring some of that inspiration back to the Schuman Show. And there was a very similar question that someone asked. And the answer that was given is that with very hard subjects, sometimes you can't go directly to the heart of it. So if you think about the subject like a wheel, you can poke at the spokes of the wheel rather than the wheel itself, especially if we're talking about something tragic, about something that is patently unfunny or that would be punching down. Sometimes it is in the ridiculousness of what's happening or the powers that be around it that you can joke rather than about the subject. Personally, speaking as Kelly, I have found it very hard to choose to make jokes about certain things in the news this year, and I choose not to at all if it's something that is truly tragic.
And we have a lot of those kind of topics right now that are very important, but unfortunately finding a really right angle to speak about them in a way not to minimize people's pain or the horror, it's quite difficult. But do you think that Europeans in general can laugh at themselves? Because I feel like we have such a different sense of humor from north to south, east to west. And do we really have a strong comedy scene? Because in America, it looks like there are so many comedy shows and sketches, and in Europe, there is really nothing European that would be representative for everybody almost on the continent.
I think that now with the emergence of comedy on social media, we see a lot of smaller scale comedy takes on everyday life or on universal subjects like the cost of living and things like that, that I think you can relate to whether you are Greek, whether you're Italian, whether you're Portuguese. I follow a lot of these creators, and if I don't speak the language, I read the subtitles and it still makes me laugh. So I do think we have a sense of humor, but I think that because of the time we live in now, it's very hard to have a unified vision of what happens everywhere. So you kind of have to look for your niche a little more. Would it be wonderful if we could have something pan-European? Obviously. This inspired the Schuman Show.
We would all probably love that very much. But you mentioned actually watching a comedy show with subtitles. Has it happened that you made a joke in Brussels that you crushed it and then you went to another city and it completely flopped?
We've been to Amsterdam twice with the Schuman Show. We flopped both times, I would say. Oh, yeah. A specific joke I made, I think, was I made a joke about the Dutch being stingy. Yes, they did not appreciate
They do not laugh about that. We also made that joke once in our apartment during a gathering. I think our guests were pretty hurt about it.
Did work in Brussels, though.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, for sure. And because you work in Greek as well, you write in English, do you feel like comedy and sarcasm and jokes can also get lost in translation? Do you find yourself particularly funny or unfunny in certain languages?
So much of what is funny is reacting to the truth of what is going on.
Yeah.
And you can react to the truth of what is going on with your emotions, with your words, with your body. So as long as you are being authentic and in the moment, I think that the comedy will follow if it's a consequence rather than an aim. I'm funniest when I'm not trying to be funny, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
When I'm just being honest, because the truth is funny. And in fact, there's a great book called Truth and Comedy, which a lot of improvisers will know. And if you don't know it, get it. And it's all about that, about how the truth is inherently funny, honesty is inherently funny, following mistakes, because mistakes are funny. That'll always be funnier than trying to shoehorn something and make it funny.
And I think just trying to conclude the Schuman Show as a topic, because there are many other aspects that I would like to talk about. But first, was there a moment when you just were on stage or in the backstage, a fun incident happened, or someone important came to the show and you were like, wow, we made it, we made it happen?
The moment for me in the Schuman Show where I felt like we have arrived, it's working, we are a success, was actually quite early on. Because the truth is, I had no doubt from the beginning that it would work, because it was an unexploited niche in Brussels. There wasn't a consistent show joking about what happens in the institutions, what everyone does. But our second official show was in October 2021, and Euronews asked to interview us and to come and film the show. And so the fact that we were already on their radar after a month, our first show was in the basement of a bar. Only 50 people could attend, because that's how small our venue was. Our second one was in a venue that took 250 people, sure. And even though now we play in a theater that seats 500, I will never forget the moment that Euronews said, can we come and film the Schuman Show? Can we interview you about what we do?
Honestly, I actually got goosebumps. It's just so nice to hear that you can believe in something and then people appreciate and see your intention, your idea, your thought behind it, and want to celebrate you for your creativity. That must have felt awesome.
It felt really worth it when we were able to see that, okay, it resonated with people enough to fill in that small bar. It resonated enough for the word to get out, because Politico also wrote up a thing on the playbook about us after the first show. People think it's funny. They want to laugh at themselves, because also they get to see a mirror. They get to commiserate or joke or bond over the things we do and see here.
I am myself an avid consumer of comedy. I have probably watched a lot of Netflix shows and I'm going to a lot of live performances in Brussels as well. And recently I was watching an interview between two comics, Hassan Minaj and Moamer. They were talking about whether comedy has the power to change people's minds. And I'm just wondering, based on your experience, do you feel like comedy can change the minds of the people who work in the bubble? So if more people came to the Schuman Show and more MEPs, more people working in the commission, would they be able to think differently about the work that they are doing and the impact it has on people all around Europe and not only?
For me as a performer, witnessing what makes them laugh, I think it's a very good sign that the criticism we aim at the institutions and the civil servants themselves usually gets huge laughs, because I think that means there is some self-awareness and that there is this critical lens through which we are seeing something, and maybe the thing that they don't dare say that they're thinking, we dare say. And so if it's out in the open and they know that we know and that we can see this, etc., maybe that can spark a conversation, maybe that can spark a discussion, maybe that can expose the ridiculousness at a higher level.
Okay, now it's my favorite part of the episode, where we are playing. We're gonna play a little game. We're doing it with all of our guests. It's called rapid fire questions.
Sure.
It's more like the Colbert questionnaire. You
Yeah,
probably know
of
that,
course,
which I
of
love.
course.
Trying to get to your soul and understand how you feel about it.
Okay, let's
So,
go. Let's go.
How do you explain your job to your grandparents?
Actress.
Most overused Brussels buzzword.
Holistic approach.
Oh God, I love that one. Or I hate that one.
We have a sketch about that. Duolingo, the Duolingo episode on the Schuman Show YouTube.
What's your favorite power move during Brussels networking events?
When I don't remember names, I introduce the person next to me to the person whose name I don't remember.
God, that's so good. I definitely need to use that. I'm also very bad with names. I'm very good with nationalities. And non-EU place you go to escape the bubble in Brussels or in Belgium?
The Marol. I love the Marol. Just and
very
the vintage
different.
market, the antique shops. You can get lost in those antique shops.
What's the policy area that's way sexier than people think?
Fisheries.
Is it?
Second biggest environmental catastrophes on the planet happen because of overfishing.
Do we need to invite someone from who works in fisheries to
Absolutely.
talk about it?
Yes.
Valeria, that's the plan for the
Fisheries
next episode.
can be sexy, I promise you.
If Brussels was an animal, what kind of animal would it be?
A mutt, like the Zineke, I think is a very good example. This dog where you don't know where the race comes from because we're all from so many different places. And the city itself is a hodgepodge of architecture and different neighborhoods, and nothing makes sense, but everything makes sense.
Works together really
It works,
well.
yeah.
What's your favorite cultural institution in Brussels?
Aside from my own?
Aside of your own, yeah.
The Beaux-Arts.
That's a good one. Yeah. What's your favorite coffee or lunch spot in Brussels? Is it a Greek one?
Tomeli.
This is not an advertising, by the way, but I go there quite often as well. What is the first place you take your friends or family when they are here to show that Brussels is actually very cool?
The Marol, actually. We go down Rue Haute, we go up Rue Blaise, we stop by the Jeu de Balle on the way, yeah, funky, cool coffee shops and record shops on the way. Vintage clothing.
Marol is very cool. We need to go there more often to actually escape the bubble because
perfect Sunday afternoon.
And last question, which is going to be a bit controversial. Who has a better cuisine and restauration culture in Brussels, Italians or Greeks?
I'm sorry, Greeks, Italians, they win by far.
I cannot wait for all the Greeks to go to the comments of the episode and complain about.
We have better cafe culture though. We win cafe culture.
And to conclude the episode, I would like to ask you the question that we asked to all our guests at the end of it. How do you find your middle ground in Brussels?
My cat keeps me very grounded. No matter what I do, whether it's having been out with friends or just off stage, etc. When I come home and we cuddle or watch a movie or something, it's that simple loving act that just brings me back to myself. And whether I've had the best day ever or the worst day ever, I feel like everything's gonna be okay.
So having pets is your middle ground. Having a pet
is
your middle ground.
Everyone should get a pet.
We also, I'm trying to persuade Valeria to get a cat. Let's see if she's gonna fall into that.
You will not regret it.
Our former guest, Francesco Capelletti, has left a question for you.
Ooh.
And you have to leave a question for our next guest. But his question is the following. What is the most terrifying thing in Brussels besides the Charleroi airport?
The most terrifying thing?
Yes.
I think when you're going for the last metro and everyone is stampeding on the escalators, that's pretty scary.
And what question would you leave for our next guest?
My question for your next guest is, what are you most excited about in the moment?
We also have another tradition in the show where we ask our guests to bring something interesting, something special that without which they cannot live in Brussels. And I want to see what have you brought with you.
All right. Yep, 1 and 2. So this is my mini blender. It is not a famous mark. It's called Domo, but I've had the NutriBullets, I've had the big blenders, and I swear by this one because you put this on the machine, you blend all your greens, etc., and then you're ready to take it away.
That's awesome. So you have smoothies on the go all the time.
I have whatever the thing about my life that I love, but that's also tricky is that my mornings are always very unpredictable. I don't know if I'm going to go to rehearsal, get on a video call, travel to do a team building, or go to the gym. I don't know always what my mornings will look like. So I can't really afford to take my time and have this whole breakfast routine. But I'm also a person that gets very hangry. So I have to eat something. So I always have fruits and greens and smoothie things in the fridge. And it's a very easy ritual and routine. And yeah, it makes sure that I am fed and happy and pretty healthy too.
Kelly, thank you so much for coming to the middle ground, to the couch. The next Schuman Show, I guess, happening in October. You are going to be back. What are the dates?
If I recall correctly, it is the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of October. So that should be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And our tickets will be up on schumanshow.eu very soon.
We are looking forward to seeing what you have planned for the new, let's say, academic year.
So am I. We're still writing the show.
We hope that the new year is going to start amazing. And I wish you good luck in the improv school. And who knows, maybe I'm going to visit you one day and try improv myself.
Oh, change your life. It'll change your life.
Thank you very much and have a lovely evening. And you have a lovely evening as well. Bye-bye.